All right, we're going to look at Leonardo da Vinci today. It's Professor Marc Leone, and welcome to the Drawing Database. Leonardo from Da Vinci, born in Da Vinci in 1452, and he passed away in 1519. He could do a little bit of everything, couldn't he? So I want to show you today some of the drawings and talk very, very quickly, since we have 15 minutes with Da Vinci, and show you his range and his mind. So here we have a self-portrait. And what you notice about his style and technique, it has a very linear quality, soft tone, linear quality with the chalk, using more of the tip of a pencil to gesture and render, and then later on using the broader stroke of the pencil to render a little bit of tone. But here we have a beautiful study of Leonardo da Vinci as an older man, and gorgeous control of all the elements of the drawing, with an economy of means. Of course, we get some of the molding of the paper over 500 or so years, but beautiful control of anatomy, shadow, tone in the nose, lip, and through kind of a downturned, serious nature of Leonardo. Very elegant man and an interesting mind, and really a forerunner to many of the wonderful breakthroughs we've had in science and architecture and also art. Here we see a drawing of a battle scene, the Battle of Engari, I believe, close to that name. And we have really a chaotic scene of horse battle, a study for a painting. So we get a chalk rendering with some soft tone of the paper, and looks like some wash and watercolor here. But you get this wonderful rhythm and movement of forcing your eye into these beautiful, really rhythmic movements within the structure of the composition. Of course, we have the focal point up here at the top with the heads, and this really one figure moving into and pointing to another, and then moving around to point out, movement, flow back in and around. You could spend all day looking at the gorgeous quality of all this. And of course, you can't get these individuals to pose and horses to pose for you. So his understanding of horse anatomy and figurative anatomy certainly plays into a strong aspect with this imaginative, seemingly very realistic, but yet very highly stylized, drawing the control of foreshortening in through the head, the haunches of the horses, their expression, etc., is haunting, and a violent expression of male dominance and ego. Probably, I'm guessing, this is only a guess, a metaphor for city-state conflict within each Italian city-state within his time, which was the early to middle Renaissance. Here we have a chalk drawing of a head study by Leonardo, and the great economy of means in the movement around the head, side plane of the head. And through here we get a little bit of the top, since that head is leaning down onto the structure of, or our eyesight, we get this kind of an idea coming, tilted head coming down in its axis, right, coming over. Get the three-dimensionality of the neck as it moves across from the side. So lovely study, but also quite gorgeous in the quality of the draftsmanship and clarity, the softness with which he would model his forms in the side of the shadow. So we all know that the light source is coming from this region up and through here, obviously. And then the shadow tone here. Look at the beautiful contour line, darker contour line to emphasize darker core shadows, and turning, and then these overarched brows in through here to really push back the eye sockets and bury the eyeballs into their proper anatomical location. And I love the missing teeth, the open mouth, just a beautiful, beautiful expression of anguish or pain or violence through Leonardo. Here we have a study for sculpture, a gesture study. Notice the difference in style from some of the other artists we've talked about. This is a much more linear style, scratchier style. Notice the stylus, almost like a silver point type, probably. Quite frankly, it could be. But the drawing is conceived, looks to be, quite frankly, out of the head. He might have used a horse for reference, maybe another statue, but we can see different thinking, ways of thinking about the position of the legs, both the front and the back of the horse, different horse and rider positions, different studies. This is what you can use gesture for, is to explore different positions of what you want in a drawing. And these in and of themselves could be beautiful expressions of a finished drawing. Gesture can be in and of itself something quite beautiful and to be able to stand on its own. This was a lovely drawing. I chose this one to show his full au revoir drawing works as best I could. This is a metaphor of the lion and the calf here and the eagle here over the world here to symbolize dominion and dominance, and probably a battle between different cultures or city-states. But we see this illustrative drawing of the kind of a minotaur figure in through here, half man, half bull, eagle, and then the beautiful quality of draftsmanship in a tree, in the flowy rhythm of the water. You'll see that with Leonardo. Most of this was imaginative out of his own head and very learned process. This wonderful minutia of detail with an economy of means, very quick and gestural, rhythmic, flowy kind of lines that want to do this kind of thing, this kind of approach to render branches and tree limbs and whatnot. And you see that all over his drawings, and the water down below here, you see that too as well. So I'll take this off so you can see a little bit further. This is chalk on paper. And I had to include this one. The understanding of one-point perspective and perspective use in general was heightened by Leonardo. All we have to do is think about the Last Supper, correct? But you see this beautiful control of one-point perspective. We see the vanishing point here, which was put our eye line right in through here. Then the control of this beautiful interior that we see at the top right here. The stairs moving, the risers moving up vertically, and then the treads moving down to the vanishing point, and we get both of that going on in those two stairs. And then of course we see the figures added on later to place them in this context. We have camels and battles and horses and riders and people leaning over. It's gorgeous, not only in its composition, but its control of the newfound science in use of art, in art of perspective, and also some mathematics. And they used it beautifully, as showcased here by Leonardo, for visual, theatrical kind of effect. Really no catalog or quick little visit with Leonardo would be quite complete without some of this gorgeous head studies, kind of a Mona Lisa effect, if you will. But the use of silver point, the fine tip silver point of a stylus mixed with a little metal within the coating of a piece of paper or canvas or wood, and they would draw on that. It's not erasable, so it was could be demanding, but he used it to great effect. Very kind of stylish, hard-edged point gesture we see, and then he uses it very, very beautifully with the toning and the rendering over time of these beautiful marks that he built up over time to give us very, very light, beautiful flow and gesture through them. I'll take that off so we can see that. So a different kind of style of gesture that we might see from other artists. A very point-on gesture, if you will. Leonardo shared several ideas about art and also architecture. So these plan drawings with notations here and also schematics were beautiful. So very notated drawings on domes, right? We see kind of like the Duomo in Florence, but these miniature kind of belled domes. And here I love these little rounded coves with figures in them. We see that. And so he had ideas and utilized ideas also in architecture, and as evidenced and witnessed by his drawings. So he did these wonderful aerial maps of Tuscany, and so I thought I would include one here so you could get an overview. And so we have a oblique map view of Tuscany with some waterway, oceanic kind of lake and tributary rivers and more lakes, and of course the mountains in through here. Kind of an abstract design through, but I'm not sure if it's to scale, but it is a lovely beginning in understanding, and gives you the quality of mind that Leonardo had and what he was thinking, and also the wonderful ideas about civilization and mapping and Getting these ideas probably from the Far East Arab world, who were fantastic cartographers in their own right. It's certainly not during this time, certainly before that time as well. So borrowed ideas, and then you put it in the hands of a genius like Leonardo, and you get this wonderful approach to cartography. And no catalog or a little visit with Leonardo would be complete without his military studies of different weaponry for various effects of battle and torture, etc. Here we see a kind of catapult or a cannon with several figures. It's interesting how they're completely nude and working and catapulting. I love the pulling in here of the torquing of the figures in a very small kind of way, and this big flow they're pulling through. Of course, we have this tripod or quad pod, if you will, 4 different stalks coming down to hold together and practice what could be a cannon or some kind of battering ram used to create an advantage for one's own side in warfare. This lovely study is of nature. We have 2 studies of crabs, and we get, I think, a wonderful view of Leonardo's technique in pen and ink. To me, that's where some of his drawings are at, where they shine the most, or at least for my aesthetic, is this beautiful. It's a little blurry there, but we get the vision here of Leonardo's wonderful crab drawing, and we see the lay-in of this quick, wonderful gesture that he gets throughout the drawing with the ink pen and crow quill pen right through this movement of the different legs and then the claws and through dew claw there, if you will. And then you get a little coarse shadow going, and then the expression of the kind of oval quality, beam quality of the head of the crab, and you get 2 different views, one kind of coming onto itself, but look at the rhythm of the line work as it moves. It turns over different directions. Very hatching kind of technique that we see in this drawing. So he's drawing on all aspects of life, not only imagined but also observed. And here we have 2 observed observations of kind of a crab in self-defense, and maybe one tucked under either that or it was dead. The anatomy sketchbooks are some of everybody's favorites. His notations on human anatomy, cadaver studies, bone, muscle here, mostly the leg, the hip, lower leg, and pelvic region. We have study of the pelvic unit with the lumbar and sacral vertebrae, sacro-lumbar vertebrae of an animal here to compare, perhaps a dog or some other type of wolf, canine type animal with the human. Just the beautiful quality of clarity of the rendering. What I love is things like this, the Achilles tendon coming down. I think that's just a lovely view of the foreshortened foot, calcaneus bone, and the offset nature of the malleoli with the feet there, and of course the gastrocnemius and then the soleus underneath it, sitting on top of the gastroc as they both come down and flow into the calcaneus bone. In looking at another pectoral region of a male cadaver, probably hung up and stretched to get the tissue as the skin was probably fading, and they didn't have a lot of time back then. But these bodies, who knows where they came from, if they were criminals, etc., and forgotten men, but their donation to Leonardo's mind and science certainly pushed us along. The beautiful pectoral, upper pectoral, and the lower here, the substantial one, moving and stretching all the way over to the tubercle. Then we get the deltoid on top, bicep area, brachialis area underneath to render this beautiful area underneath with a slight little lap behind it. Of course, we get the scapula, another scapula front and back, and of course we get the writing, his notations in this study of what's probably the vein region of blood supply. I would think more than nerves, or maybe just striations of the tissue. I'm not really sure, but lovely in its own right. And then I thought lastly I would leave you with another Leonardo head study in chalk, and you get kind of all of his ideas together in one. You get this beautiful chalky gesture of the floral quality of this wreath on the head. You can't tell where the hair ends and the wreath begins, and the garland starts to flow up, but it's this beautiful, these little curve here to there and around and over, and it's just gorgeous, this leafy kind of gestural pattern. And then you get the slow chalk rendering, the blending, probably with a stump or a hand, a little bit of erasing in the highlight there, and then you get this lastly, the beautiful touch-up of bringing the jowls of this older, middle-aged man as everything is pushed kind of downward in terms of gravity, as we all start to experience that, right? And as you get older, and this lovely darker line to signify light source slightly diffused and coming from the top. And they get what is maybe a lion over here to the side, and how he thinks about a quick kind of gesture as well. Chalk, tone, erasing, subtracting, rendering, and also the linear gesture along with rhythm, right, and flow. Just gorgeous.